The galaxy had been quiet for 1,000 years. Two great empires ruled everything. The Crimson Dominion controlled the eastern half of known space. The Nova Ascendancy controlled the west. Between them lay the Neutral Corridor, a strip of empty space where neither empire dared to enter. Both empires were old. Both were cruel. They had conquered hundreds of species and turned billions of living beings into slaves. The rulers of these empires believed they were gods. They believed nothing in the universe could challenge them. They were wrong. On what seemed like an ordinary day, sensors across the Neutral Corridor detected something strange. A ship had appeared from nowhere. It had dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the empty zone and simply stopped moving. The ship was small. It measured barely 1 kilometer from front to back. Its hull was painted in deep black, so dark that it seemed to swallow light. There were no markings on it. No flags, no symbols. Nothing that anyone recognized. Admiral Vextharian of the Crimson Dominion received the report first. He was a tall creature with red scales and 4 arms. He had served the Empire for 200 years and had never lost a battle. When he saw the images of the strange black ship, he laughed. "One ship," he said to his officers. "One tiny ship dares to enter our space. Send 40 warships. Capture it or destroy it. I do not care which." The scout fleet launched within the hour. 40 Crimson warships, each one 5 kilometers long, armed with plasma cannons and antimatter torpedoes. They were the pride of the Empire. They had crushed rebellions and burned worlds. They flew toward the black ship in perfect formation. Admiral Vextharian waited for the report. An hour passed. Then 2 hours. Then 5. The scout fleet did not respond to any communication. Their signals simply vanished. The admiral grew worried. He sent surveillance drones to investigate. What the drones found made his blood run cold. The 40 warships were gone. Not damaged. Not retreating. Gone. Only debris remained, floating in space like dust. Pieces of metal so small that they could barely be identified. The mighty Crimson vessels had been reduced to nothing, and in the center of all that destruction, the black ship sat perfectly still. There was not a single scratch on its hull. It had not moved from its position. It waited like a predator watching its prey. Then a transmission came through. It broadcast on every frequency. It spoke in every known language. The voice was calm and cold. "This is the HS Prometheus, representing the United Human Federation. You have taken our colony ship. You have enslaved our people. You have 20 cycles to return them. There will be no second warning." Admiral Vextharian had never heard of humans. He had never heard of the United Human Federation. He searched the Imperial databases and found nothing. This species did not exist in any record. He sent the transmission to High Sovereign Malachar, the supreme ruler of the Crimson Dominion. Malachar was ancient, even by alien standards. He had ruled for 3,000 years and had killed anyone who challenged him. When he heard the human transmission, he smiled. "An unknown species makes demands of us?" he said. "How amusing. They destroyed 40 ships with some trick. Perhaps they have powerful weapons. But they have only one ship. We have thousands. Find them. Crush them. Bring me their captain in chains." On the other side of the galaxy, Empress Celera of the Nova Ascendancy received the same transmission. She was more cautious than Malachar. She did not smile. She studied the footage of the destroyed Crimson Fleet and felt something she had not felt in centuries. Fear. "Find out everything about these humans," she ordered her spies. "I want to know where they came from. I want to know how many ships they have. I want to know everything." But her spies found nothing. The humans were ghosts. They had no homeworld in any database. They had no colonies that anyone knew of. They had appeared from the darkness of space, like a nightmare coming to life, deep beneath the surface of Crimson Prime, in the slave pits where prisoners worked until they died. 3,000 humans heard whispers of the transmission. They were the survivors of the colony ship Hope's Dawn. 11 years ago, their ship had been captured while traveling through unexplored space. The Crimson Dominion had taken them and divided them between both empires as gifts and trade goods. They had been slaves ever since. They had been beaten. They had been starved. They had been treated like animals. Many had died. Those who survived had lost all hope. But now hope returned. An old woman named Sarah Chun had been a navigator on Hope's Dawn. She was 60 years old now. Her hair white, her body broken from years of hard labor. When she heard about the Prometheus, tears rolled down her face. "They came," she whispered to the other humans in her cell. "They actually came for us." A young man named David asked, "Who came? What are you talking about?" Sarah grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "The Federation? We sent a distress signal before they captured us. I never thought anyone would receive it. I never thought anyone would come. But they did. They found us. One ship," David said. "They sent one ship against 2 empires. What can one ship do?" Sarah smiled for the first time in 11 years. "You do not understand. The Federation does not send ships it cannot afford to lose. If they send one ship, it means one ship is enough. If they sent one ship, it means they are certain of victory." She looked up at the dark ceiling of her cell, imagining the stars beyond. "The empires have made a terrible mistake," she said. "They do not know what humans are capable of. They do not know what we do to those who hurt our families. They think they are the predators. They are about to learn that they are the prey." Above them, in the cold emptiness of space, the Prometheus waited in silence. Its crew of 4,000 humans worked at their stations with calm focus. They had trained for this mission for years. They knew what they had to do. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge. She was 45 years old, with short black hair and eyes that revealed nothing. She had grown up on stories of the lost colony ship. She had sworn an oath to bring their people home. "The Crimson Fleet has been destroyed," her first officer reported. "Both empires have received our message." "Good," Vasquez said. "Now we wait. We gave them 20 cycles. We will honor that promise. And when the time runs out, we will show them exactly what one human warship can do." She looked at the stars on the view screen. Somewhere out there, 3,000 humans were waiting to be rescued. "Hold on," she whispered. "We are coming." High Sovereign Malachar did not believe in waiting. He had ruled the Crimson Dominion for 3,000 years by crushing his enemies before they could grow strong. One strange ship had destroyed 40 of his warships. This insult could not stand. He called his war council together in the great throne room of Crimson Prime. The room was massive, built from red stone taken from 100 conquered worlds. The skulls of defeated kings lined the walls. Malachar sat on a throne made from the bones of his enemies. "We will destroy these humans," he announced. "We will burn their ship to ashes. We will find their homeworld and turn it into dust. No species threatens the Crimson Dominion and lives." Admiral Vextharian stood before the throne. He had lost 40 ships. He had been humiliated. Now he wanted revenge. "Give me the entire armada," he said. 2,000 warships. The largest fleet we have assembled in 300 years. I will personally lead them against this enemy. Malachar smiled. His teeth were sharp like needles. "You have my permission. Take everything. Leave nothing of them." The order went out across the empire. Every warship was called back from every corner of Crimson space. Battlecruisers, destroyers, carriers, dreadnoughts. They gathered above crimson prime like a swarm of angry insects. 2,000 vessels, each one armed with enough weapons to destroy a planet. Admiral Vextharian boarded his flagship, the Crimson Fury. It was the largest ship in the fleet, 8 kilometers long, carrying enough firepower to crack a moon in half. He stood on the bridge and looked at his armada on the view screen. "Today we show the galaxy what happens to those who challenge us," he said. "Move out." The fleet entered hyperspace and vanished. On the other side of the galaxy, Empress Celira watched with interest. She did not trust Malachor. She never had. The Crimson Dominion and Nova Ascendancy have been rivals for 10,000 years. They have fought 7 great wars. Millions had died in their battles. Now Celira saw an opportunity. If the Crimson Armada was busy fighting the humans, she could move her own forces into the neutral corridor. She could claim territory that both empires had wanted for centuries. "Prepare a fleet," she ordered her admirals. "We will observe this battle, and when the Crimson forces are weakened, we will strike." The Nova fleet launched in secret. 1,000 warships moved toward the neutral corridor under the cover of darkness. The Prometheus detected both fleets approaching. Its sensors were far more advanced than anything the Empires possessed. The crew knew exactly how many ships were coming and from which direction. Captain Vasquez called a meeting of her senior officers. 2,000 Crimson warships will arrive in 6 hours, she reported. 1,000 Nova ships are following behind them, hiding at the edge of sensor range. The Empires think they can overwhelm us with numbers. A weapons officer, Commander James Park, looked at the tactical display. "Ma'am, we can handle them. Our shields can absorb more damage than their entire fleet can deliver. Our weapons can destroy their ships before they even get close." "I know," Vasquez said, "but I want this to be a lesson. I want every species in this galaxy to see what happens when you enslave humans. I want the recording of this battle to be shown for 1,000 years." She turned to her crew. "No mercy. No prisoners. When they run, let them run. Let them carry stories back to their masters. Let them spread fear." The Crimson Armada dropped out of hyperspace exactly where the Prometheus waited. 2,000 warships formed a massive wall of metal and weapons. They surrounded the tiny black vessel from every direction. Admiral Vextharian looked at the human ship on his view screen. It looked so small, so fragile. He laughed. "All ships, open fire." He commanded. 10,000 plasma cannons fired at once. Antimatter torpedoes launched by the hundreds. Missile swarms darkened the space around the Prometheus. The amount of firepower would have been enough to destroy a small moon. The Prometheus simply flickered and vanished. Every weapon passed through empty space. Where did it go? Vextharian shouted. "Find it." The human ship reappeared behind the Crimson Fleet. It had moved faster than any sensor could track. Its weapons activated. These were not plasma cannons. These were not missiles. The Prometheus carried gravitational lances, weapons that created focused points of infinite gravity. Miniature black holes that lasted for just a fraction of a second, but crushed everything in their path. The first lance fired and hit a Crimson battlecruiser. The 5-kilometer ship crumpled like paper. It collapsed into a ball of compressed metal, no larger than a human fist. Then the ball vanished, pulled into the artificial gravity well. The Prometheus fired again and again. Each shot destroyed a ship. Each shot was a death sentence. Admiral Vextharian watched in horror as his mighty fleet died around him. The human ship moved through space like a ghost. It phased in and out of existence, appearing and disappearing at will. Every time it appeared, another Crimson ship died. "Retreat!" Vextharian screamed. "All ships retreat." The surviving Crimson vessels turned and fled. They had arrived with 2,000 warships. After 9 minutes of battle, only 400 remained. The rest were dead, crushed into nothing by weapons that should not exist. The Prometheus did not chase them. It returned to its original position and stopped moving. Captain Vasquez watched the fleeing ships on her view screen. Her face showed no emotion, no joy, no satisfaction, only cold determination. "Damage report," she said. "None, Captain," her engineer replied. "They never touched us." The Nova fleet had watched the entire battle from a safe distance. Empress Celera saw the footage in real time. She saw 2,000 warships destroyed in minutes. She saw weapons that made her own technology look like children's toys. Her hands trembled. She had ruled for 1,500 years. She had never felt so afraid. "Pull back," she ordered. "Return to Nova space immediately. Do not engage the humans under any circumstances." Her admirals obeyed without question. The Nova fleet retreated before the Prometheus even noticed them. Back on Crimson Prime, High Sovereign Malachar received the news of his fleet's destruction. For the first time in 3,000 years, he did not know what to do. He had sent his entire military against one ship. That ship had won. Admiral Vextharian knelt before the throne, his scales pale with shame. "Forgive me, my lord. Their weapons, their technology, it is beyond anything we have ever seen. We cannot fight them. We cannot defeat them." Malachar wanted to kill the admiral for his failure, but he knew that killing Vextharian would not solve his problem. The humans were still out there, and now they knew that the Crimson Dominion could not stop them. 18 cycles remain, Malachar whispered to himself. What will they do next? The answer came sooner than he expected. On the Prometheus, Captain Vasquez reviewed the battle data with satisfaction. Phase 1 was complete. The Empires knew that they could not win through force. "Begin Phase 2, she ordered. "Contact our networks. It is time to remind the galaxy that we have friends everywhere." She looked at the stars through her view screen. "They thought this was a military battle," she said quietly. "They were wrong. This is a rescue mission, and we are just getting started." 3 cycles remained. The deadline was approaching. High Sovereign Malachar and Empress Celera met for the first time in 500 years. Their last meeting had ended with both trying to kill each other. Now they sat across a table on a space station in the neutral corridor, enemies forced to become allies. "I hate you," Malachar said calmly. "I have wanted to destroy your empire since before you were born." "The feeling is mutual," Celera replied. "Your existence disgusts me." They stared at each other with ancient hatred. But they both knew that hatred meant nothing now. A greater threat demanded their attention. "One ship has humiliated both our empires," Malachar continued. "One ship has freed thousands of slaves. One ship has shown the galaxy that we can bleed. If we do not destroy it, our subjects will rise against us. Everything we have built will burn." Celera nodded. "I agree. We must combine our forces. Every ship we have, the greatest fleet in galactic history. Even human technology cannot stand against 9,000 warships." The alliance was formed. Generals who had fought each other for centuries now planned together. The Crimson Dominion contributed 5,000 vessels. The Nova Ascendancy added 4,000 more. 9,000 warships, enough firepower to destroy solar systems. The fleet gathered at the edge of the neutral corridor. It was a magnificent sight. Ships stretched across space as far as sensors could detect. Red hulls from the Crimson Dominion mixed with silver hulls from the Nova Ascendancy. Ancient enemies united against a common foe. Admiral Vextharian had been given command of the combined fleet. He had failed once. He would not fail again. "Find the human ship," he ordered. "Every scanner, every probe, every spy satellite. Search everywhere. When we find them, we attack with everything we have." The search began. Thousands of sensors swept across space. Probes launched in every direction. The empires devoted all their resources to finding the Prometheus. They found nothing. The human ship had vanished. It was not at its last known position. It was not near any prison world. It was not anywhere the empires could detect. For 2 cycles, the combined fleet searched. Fear began to spread among the crews. Where had the humans gone? What were they planning? Then the deadline arrived. 20 cycles had passed since the human ultimatum. The empires had not returned the slaves. The empires had not responded to the demand. Every screen in both empires flickered at the same moment. Every holographic display, every communication device, every view screen on every ship. They all showed the same image. Captain Helena Vasquez appeared before billions of viewers. She stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, her uniform perfect, her expression cold as stone. Citizens of the Crimson Dominion, subjects of the Nova Ascendancy, your deadline has passed. Her voice was calm, but carried the weight of absolute authority. For 10,000 years, your rulers have told you that you are special. They have told you that other species exist to serve you. They have built empires on the blood and suffering of innocent people. They have called themselves gods. She paused and looked directly into the camera. Her dark eyes seemed to stare into the soul of every viewer. They are wrong. They are not gods. They are criminals. They are slavers. And today, they will learn what humanity does to those who enslave our people. High Sovereign Malachar watched the transmission in his throne room. His hands gripped the arms of his bone throne until they cracked. Cut the signal, he screamed. Block the transmission. His technicians tried. They failed. The human broadcast could not be stopped. Your empires have made a mistake, Vasquez continued. You saw one human ship and thought we were weak. You thought we were desperate. You thought you could defeat us with numbers. She smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. The Prometheus was not our attack fleet. The Prometheus was a messenger. We sent one ship to give you a chance to surrender peacefully. You wasted that chance. She raised her hand and made a gesture that the transmission ended. For a moment, nothing happened. The combined fleet of 9,000 warships floated in space, waiting for an attack that did not come. Admiral Vextharian stood on his bridge, surrounded by his officers, wondering what the humans were planning. Then the stars changed. Ships appeared across the galaxy. Not in one place, everywhere. Above Crimson Prime, the throne world of the Dominion. Above Nova Excelsis, the capital of the Ascendancy. Above every major military base. Above every shipyard. Above every world that mattered. 12 ships identical to the Prometheus materialized directly above Crimson Prime. 12 more appeared above Nova Excelsis. Dozens more appeared across both empires. The Federation had not sent one warship. They had sent 100. Admiral Vextharian felt his heart stop. His sensors showed the new arrivals. Each ship was identical to the one that had destroyed 2,000 of his vessels. And now there were 100 of them. The combined fleet of 9,000 ships suddenly seemed very small on Crimson Prime. High Sovereign Malachar stared at the view screen showing the human ships above his world. His defensive fleet of 200 ships tried to form a protective line. The human vessels did not even acknowledge them. This is impossible, Malachar whispered. Where did they come from? How do they have so many? Empress Salira received the same news on Nova Excelsis. Her legendary composure finally broke. She slammed her fist against her throne. We have been fools, she said. Complete fools. They were never afraid of us. They were waiting for us to gather our forces in one place. They were waiting for us to leave our capitals undefended. She looked at her admirals. Order the fleet back. Order everyone back. We must protect the homeworlds. But the fleet was too far away. It would take cycles to return. By then, anything could happen. Captain Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching the chaos unfold across the galaxy. Her crew had worked for years to reach this moment. Every ship, every soldier, every plan had been prepared for this day. "Open a channel to both capitals," she ordered. The communication was established. Malachar and Celera appeared on split screens, both looking pale and shaken. "You have seen our fleet," Vasquez said. "You have seen that we could destroy everything you have built. Your combined armada cannot reach your homeworlds in time to stop us. Your defensive forces are too weak to resist us. You have lost." She leaned forward slightly. "But we are not here to destroy. We are here to liberate. We are here to rescue our people. We gave you 20 cycles to return them peacefully. You refused. Now we will take them ourselves. And after that," she added, "we will discuss the terms of your surrender." Malachar roared in fury. "We will never surrender to you. We have ruled for 10,000 years. You are insects." Vasquez did not react to his anger. She had expected this. "You have 3 hours to consider your options," she said. "After that, we begin." The transmission ended. On the Prometheus, Vasquez turned to her first officer. "Prepare the landing teams," she ordered. "We have people to rescue. And after we rescue them, we will have empires to change." She looked at the stars one final time. Humanity hid for 200 years. We let them believe they were the most powerful beings in the galaxy. That time is over. The galaxy is about to meet the real us. The Prometheus had shown the galaxy its strength. Now it would show its cunning. For 200 years, humanity had hidden in the dark corners of the universe. They had watched the two empires conquer and enslave. They had seen the cruelty. They had seen the suffering. And they had made plans. Human spies had been working in both empires for decades. They did not look human. They wore biological disguises that made them appear as members of other species. They worked as servants, as merchants, as workers in factories and mines. They gathered information. They made friends with the slaves who suffered under imperial rule. Now, Captain Vasquez activated those networks. Across 100 worlds, encrypted messages spread through underground channels. The messages were simple. The humans are coming. When they arrive, rise. Freedom is near. The effect was immediate. On Crimson Prime, the slave caste began their resistance. Billions of aliens from dozens of conquered species worked the factories, the farms, and the mines of the empire. Without them, nothing functioned. And now they stopped working. Machines broke down, and nobody fixed them. Shipments of food arrived late or not at all. Power systems failed in government buildings. Water stopped flowing to military bases. The Crimson Dominion had built its entire civilization on the backs of slaves. Now, those slaves were fighting back. High Sovereign Malachar ordered his soldiers to punish the slaves. They did. They killed thousands. But for every slave they killed, 10 more refused to work. The Empire could not kill everyone. Without workers, they would starve. In the Nova Ascendancy, similar chaos spread. Empress Celera discovered that her secret spy networks had been compromised. Someone had given her enemies lists of her agents. Her admirals received anonymous messages, revealing her plans to betray them after the human threat was dealt with. Trust collapsed. Generals who had served together for centuries now looked at each other with suspicion. Nobody knew who to believe. Nobody knew who was a traitor. And then the Prometheus began to hunt. The ship did not attack the Empire capitals. It did not strike military bases. Instead, it went somewhere the empires never expected. The prison moons. Every empire has places where they keep their most valuable slaves. The Crimson Dominion had Kethvorin, a frozen world where political prisoners mined rare minerals until they died. The Nova Ascendancy had Sulfrix 9, a volcanic hell where slaves worked in temperatures that killed them within months. The humans from Hope's Dawn were scattered across these prison worlds. Captain Vasquez stood on the bridge as the Prometheus approached Kethvorin. The prison moon was heavily defended. Orbital platforms surrounded it. Weapons satellites watched for any threat. "Drop us out of hyperspace inside their defensive grid," she ordered. Her helmsman, Lieutenant Chun, nodded. "Yes, Captain." It should have been impossible. Normal ships could not jump so precisely. Normal ships had to arrive outside defensive lines and fight their way in. The Prometheus was not a normal ship that appeared directly above Kethvorin, inside the ring of defense platforms. By the time the Crimson weapon systems locked on, the Prometheus had already fired. Electromagnetic pulses swept across the orbital defenses. These pulses were carefully designed. They destroyed weapons and communications. They disabled engines and targeting systems. But they left life support untouched. The Prometheus was here to rescue, not to kill. Shuttles launched from the human ship. Small, fast craft that flew toward the surface of the frozen moon. They landed near the mining complexes where humans were held. The rescue teams moved quickly. They had studied the prison layouts. They knew exactly where their people were. Guards who tried to stop them were stunned with non-lethal weapons. Doors that were locked were cut open with plasma torches. 312 humans were recovered from Kethvorin. They were thin, weak, and sick from years of abuse. But they were alive. Medical teams took them aboard the Prometheus. Doctors treated their injuries. Nurses gave them food and water. For the first time in 11 years, these survivors were safe. Sarah Chen was among those rescued. When she stepped onto the Prometheus, she fell to her knees and wept. A young Marine helped her stand. "You came," Sarah said through her tears. "You actually came." "We always come," the Marine replied. "No human is left behind, ever." The rescue of Kethvorin was just the beginning. Over the next 5 cycles, the Prometheus struck again and again. Sulfrix 9, the Obsidian Pits, the Ash Fields of Morth. Every prison world where humans were held became a target. The empires could not stop the attacks. The Prometheus appeared without warning, completed its mission, and vanished before reinforcements arrived. Their most secure prisons became death traps for the guards inside. 1,700 humans were recovered. More than half of the survivors from Hope's Dawn were now safe aboard the Prometheus. But the rescue teams did not only save humans. At every prison, other slaves begged to be taken. They fell on their knees before the human soldiers and pleaded for freedom. They had suffered for so long. They had lost all hope. Now salvation had appeared from the stars. Captain Vasquez made a decision. She could not save everyone. The Prometheus had limited space. But she refused to leave anyone behind who asked for help. 12,000 aliens were rescued along with the humans. Members of a dozen different species. They were given food and shelter aboard the human vessel. They were treated with kindness, something many of them had never experienced. A young alien named Crix was among those saved. He was only 15 years old by human standards. He had been born in slavery. He had never known anything else. When a human doctor examined him, Crix asked a question. "Why? Why did you save us?" "We are not human. We are nothing to you." The doctor smiled sadly. "You are people. That is enough. No one deserves to be a slave." Crix did not understand. In his entire life, no one had ever treated him as anything more than property. This kindness was strange and frightening. But it was also wonderful. High Sovereign Malachar and Empress Salira received reports of each rescue. Their anger grew with every lost prison. But beneath the anger was fear. the humans were not just fighting a war. They were sending a message. They were showing every slave in both empires that freedom was possible. They were showing every conquered species that the empires were not invincible. This was more dangerous than any weapon. "They are turning our own slaves against us," Celera said to her advisors. "If this continues, we will face rebellions on every world." "We must destroy them," one advisor said. "We must combine our forces with the Crimson Dominion. Together we have enough ships to overwhelm even their technology." Celera considered this. She hated Malachar. She had spent centuries trying to destroy him. But now they faced a common enemy. "Contact the Crimson Dominion," she ordered. "Tell them we must speak. The time has come for an alliance." On the Prometheus, Captain Vasquez reviewed the latest intelligence reports. Her networks had already learned about the planned alliance between the empires. She smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a hunter watching prey walk into a trap. "3 cycles remain," she said. "Let them gather their fleets. Let them believe they can win through numbers. When the moment comes, we will show them the truth." She looked at the rescued survivors being treated in the medical bay. 300 more had been saved today, but hundreds still waited in slavery. "Hold on," she whispered. "Just a little longer." The 3 hours passed in silence. Across both empires, people waited. Slaves looked up at the skies with hope. Masters looked up with fear. Everyone knew that the galaxy was about to change forever. High Sovereign Malachar refused to surrender. He had ruled for 3,000 years. He had crushed every enemy. He would not kneel before these humans. "Launch everything," he ordered his remaining forces above Crimson Prime. "Attack their ships. Die with honor if you must." His 200 defensive vessels obeyed. They charged toward the 12 human ships, weapons firing, ready to sacrifice themselves for their empire. That the battle lasted less than a minute. The human ships did not even need to move. Their gravitational lances reached across space and crushed the crimson vessels one by one. 200 ships became 200 clouds of compressed metal, each no larger than a grain of sand. When the last crimson warship died, the human fleet descended toward the planet. Malachar watched from his throne room. His guards stood around him, weapons ready, prepared to die defending their sovereign. But Malachar knew it was pointless. The humans had won. "Get out," he told his guards. "All of you, leave." The guards hesitated. They had sworn to protect him. "I said leave," Malachar screamed. "I will face them alone." The guards departed. Malachar sat alone on his throne of bones, waiting for the end. Human shuttles landed in the palace courtyard. Soldiers in black armor emerged, moving with perfect discipline. They secured every entrance. They disabled every security system. They met no resistance. Captain Vasquez walked through the palace halls herself. She wanted to see this moment. She wanted to look into the eyes of the creature who had enslaved her people. She found Malachar sitting on his throne, exactly where she expected him. He was old, ancient even. His scales faded with age, but his eyes still burned with hatred. "So you are the human captain," Malachar said. "You are smaller than I imagined." "Size means nothing," Vasquez replied. "Power means nothing. Not the kind of power you understand." She walked closer until she stood before the throne. 2 Marines flanked her, but she did not need their protection. Malachar was no threat now. "For 3,000 years, you have ruled through fear," she said. "You have killed millions. You have enslaved billions. You have built your empire on suffering, and you thought no one would ever stop you." She shook her head slowly. "You were wrong. There is always someone stronger. There is always someone willing to stand against evil. You've just never met them before." Malachar laughed bitterly. And now you will kill me? Become the new tyrant? Take my empire for yourself? No, Vasquez said. That is not what humanity does. She stepped back and spoke into her communication device. Bring in the representatives. A group of aliens entered the throne room. They were thin and weak, dressed in the simple clothes of slaves. But they walked with their heads high. They were representatives of every species that Malachar had conquered. Every species he had enslaved. Your fate will be decided by them, Vasquez said. The people you tortured, the people you murdered. They will judge you. They will decide what justice means. For the first time in 3,000 years, High Sovereign Malachar felt true fear. On Nova Excelsis, Empress Alira made a different choice. She watched the human fleet above her world. She saw what had happened to the Crimson Defensive Forces. She calculated her odds of survival. They were 0. Open a channel to the human ships, she ordered. The communication was established. Captain Vasquez appeared on the screen. I surrender, Salira said. The words tasted like poison in her mouth. I will accept your terms. All of them. Vasquez nodded. A wise decision. Your people will suffer less because of it. Human ships landed on Nova Excelsis peacefully. Salira was taken into custody without violence. She would face the same judgment as Malachar, but her cooperation meant her people would not die in a pointless battle. Over the following weeks, the galaxy transformed. Every human slave was freed. Medical teams treated their injuries. Counselors helped them recover from years of trauma. Ships carried them to safety, to a place where they could heal. Sarah Chun, the old navigator from Hopestone, stood on the observation deck of a Federation medical ship. She watched her homeworld through the view screen. She had not seen Earth for decades. Now she was finally going home. David, the young man she had met in the slave pits, stood beside her. What happens now? He asked. We heal, Sarah said. We remember. We make sure this never happens again. She looked at him with eyes that had seen too much suffering. The Federation did not just come to rescue us. They came to change the galaxy. They came to end slavery everywhere. It will take years, maybe decades, but they will not stop until every chain is broken. The liberation spread across both empires. On every world, slaves walked free. They emerged from mines and factories, from fields and prisons. Many did not know what freedom meant. They had never experienced it. The Federation helped them. They brought food and medicine. They built schools and hospitals. They taught the former slaves that they had value, that they mattered, that they were not property. New governments formed. For the first time in 10,000 years, conquered species had a voice. They elected their own leaders. They made their own laws. They chose their own futures. Captain Vasquez addressed the galaxy one final time. She stood before the newly formed Galactic Compact, an alliance of free species united in peace. Humanity watched the galaxy for 2 centuries, she said. We saw 2 empires rule through terror. We saw billions suffer in chains. We could have stayed hidden. We could have protected only ourselves. She looked at the representatives before her. Aliens from 100 worlds, many of them former slaves, now free citizens of a new order. But that is not who we are. Humanity believes that all thinking beings deserve freedom. We believe that no one should suffer in slavery. We believe that the strong must protect the weak. She paused, letting her words settle over the assembly. We do not seek to rule. We do not want an empire. We want a galaxy where every species is equal, where every person is free, where no child is born in chains. She raised her hand in a gesture of friendship. Welcome to the Galactic Compact. Welcome to freedom. Welcome to the future. The assembly erupted in cheers. Species that had been enemies for centuries now celebrated together. Former masters and former slaves stood side by side, united in hope. On a small planet at the edge of Federation space, the survivors of Hope's Dawn gathered for the first time since their rescue. 3,000 people who had suffered together, who had survived together, who had finally been freed together. A young woman named Lisa Chun, Sarah's granddaughter, stood before them. She had been born in slavery. She had never known anything else. Now she was free. 11 years ago, our colony ship sent a distress signal, she said. We never knew if anyone heard it. We never knew if anyone would come. She smiled through her tears. They heard us. They came for us. One ship at first, then 100. They crossed the galaxy to save us. They went to war for us. They changed the universe for us. She looked up at the stars. That is what it means to be human. We never abandon our own. We never forget our family. And we never, ever stop fighting for each other. In the darkness of space, the Prometheus flew toward home. Its mission was complete. 3,000 humans had been rescued. 2 empires had fallen. A new era had begun. Captain Vasquez stood on the bridge, watching the stars pass by. She had done what she swore to do. She had brought her people home. Set course for Earth, she ordered. It is time to rest. The ship vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind a galaxy forever changed by its arrival. One human warship had come. And nothing would ever be the same.